Let's see here. I'll take a volunteer here, save my voice as much as possible. Read Isaiah 46, 8 through 11. It's page 1 of the of your decree handout. Who wants to read that for me? Otherwise, I'll have to appoint. Anybody here a Christian who likes to read Scripture? You are? Okay, she volunteered first, so. You think he did? Okay, so nice and loud. Page 1, yeah, just Isaiah 46, 8 through 11. As long as it's not, like the New World Translation or something. So,
Okay, 2011 NIV. He said 8 to 11. Okay. Remember this, keep it in mind, take it to heart, you rebels. Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. From the east I summon a bird of prey, from a far off land a man to fulfill my purpose. What I have said, that I will bring about. What I have planned, that I will do.
there you have it. So, yeah, that's just one out of many, many, many passages where, now, unfortunately, the open theists seem to think God's self-deceived, that all he plans somehow won't come to pass. But that's why we think about the certainty of divine foreknowledge. Now, that's something that literally unites every Orthodox Christian. While we disagree on, again, how all this stuff works internally, what is clear is that once you do get here, what God decrees will certainly come to pass. Okay? And this is why, often the key is, and even, I've, one of your shed reports that you do, he said the decree basically is the ground of God's foreknowledge. Well, that's just axiomatic. You can't have foreknowledge unless you've decided what you're going to do. So, it's really one of those things where, yeah, everybody would agree on that, whether you're Catholic, Protestant, or some division, because it can't be here, and then you have foreknowledge because you haven't decided anything's going to happen yet. So the idea of choosing it, the decree itself, is the ground of foreknowledge. But there, in and of itself, what does that assume? That what God decrees will certainly come to pass. Is God going to sort of leave it to chance? Because do you make plans and not all of them come to pass? Yeah, the last 5 minutes or something like that, yeah.
Is Molinism the only worldview that thinks that this is the best possible world, or are there other?
No, pretty much all Christian thinkers have come to that conclusion. That it's not Molinism just adds a second logical or a third logical moment between the first and the second. I'll get to that in a minute here. But literally, it's just no. Everyone throughout history, Christian thinkers have said, based on who God is, He created the best of all possible worlds, and there's no good reason. I don't think there's a good reason to believe otherwise. So again, if someone's give me an argument that he didn't or he wouldn't based on who he is, based on Scripture, good. Give me a good argument for that. Because what we do, God told us we're supposed to value truth. Okay, well, we can have false ideas about God and His ways, but the other is relevancy too. I've had this discussion a number of times. I'm doing this for 25 years, and it's my 22nd year as a theology prof, but sometimes people ask questions, and the question becomes, so let's say you spend 10 years figuring out the question, so what was the payoff? Say, what'd you really get out of all this? All right, I really thought about God did create the best of all possible worlds. All right, well, what was the problem that you had to solve? All right, let's say God didn't choose the best of all possible worlds. What are you going to do about it now? Seriously. You've concluded monotheism is true, but then you concluded God didn't make the best of all possible worlds. So what are you going to do about it? And the answer is absolutely nothing, because you're still accountable to God. So those kinds of things, you want to really think about, relevancy, materiality, and for practical Christian living.
This for maybe an apologetic sense, there's going to be some skeptics or atheistic philosophers that try to create some thought experiment in which they can show that this isn't the best possible world that could exist, and therefore your God,
Yeah.
your version of God doesn't exist.
Right.
So isn't that a
Well,
reason
that's why you just have to attack their faulty logic, because this isn't the best of all possible world, based on what? You? Why should I conclude that your version of best of all possible worlds is really the best of all possible worlds? For example, again, I want to go to, the point is, look, like we need 30 units to cover this in the applied areas, but what you're raising, yeah. The problem is people raise bad arguments against Christianity all the time. That's why there's a logical order to it. You go to the foundation. Does God exist? Yes. Go to the Kalam argument, go to all these other things, say good. Now, once you go there, all the other questions become virtually irrelevant. Okay, so what are you going to do? Wag your finger at God when you get there and say, you didn't create the best of all possible worlds in my mind. Good luck with that. Let me know how it works out for you. Yeah, bad. Yeah, that's right. Bad God, bad, Yeah, so that's what I mean. The point is, see, all of those things, if you're not addressing the foundations, you can get tied up in all sorts of discussions like that, but you go right back to, yeah, but God exists and you're a creature, right? Say, for the guy who's stuck here and, well, I just figured out a better possible world, really? Good luck. But things that, people don't consider, like, ask them, is it virtuous to be merciful and forgiving? Is that one of the highest virtues someone can have? Yes. Is that possible without permitting sin? Nope. So, things like that, you didn't think of that, did you? Okay. Yeah, maybe there are, maybe there are scenarios you haven't considered, and quote, what best of all possible world means. But anyway, so that's why, the point is people raise all sorts of objections to reality, and they're just not good objections. And they're usually fairly easily answered if you take them in their proper order. Oh. All right, so point is, what God decrees will certainly come to pass. So this is just the plan. The point is, what does it mean will certainly come to pass? And that, it means he's got to create it, and then he's got to providentially direct it to accomplish it according to his plan, for it to, quote, certainly come about. So that's where you get into, now, again, you get to other questions about this. Again, you get to the nuances of it. Some people are going to disagree on little nuances, but look, as a whole, we agree, whatever God decrees will certainly come to pass. Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, it's only the Socinians and the open theists say God doesn't know the future. Orthodoxy says, yeah, of course God knows the future. The question is, how does he know the future? And how is it that he doesn't violate our free will or something like that? That's where the distinctions are. So as we move forward, now where does Molinism come in? Again, you look at page 2 and look at the definitions of Molinism, and again, there's 2 or 3 of them there. And while everybody sort of has a similar definition, they're not all the same. Look at the number 2. This middle knowledge is the knowledge God has of what every free creature would freely do in every possible situation. Okay. Now here, the idea of subjunctive conditionals is usually sort of introduced. What does that mean? It means a bunch of if-then. If God ordains this, you would do this, okay? Again, here the concept of counterfactuals is used equivocally. There's 2 senses in this discussion of how counterfactuals are used sometimes. Sometimes counterfactuals mean subjunctive conditionals. If God ordains this, then you would do this, okay? And then sometimes you get to the actual free choice part, it gets into virtually, counterfactuals means alternative possibility, okay? So the question is, how are you using the term counterfactuals in the debate? So, so for that, as you move forward, now, so God knows what you would do in every possible scenario. So the Molinist does this. Why it's called middle knowledge is because it is placed between natural and free knowledge. So here's middle knowledge, okay? It comes prior to the divine choice, where the Molinist would say, look, God knows himself perfectly, and he knows the essences he can create. Then, at least classically, this is restricted to libertarians, but in about the last decade, there have been a few compatibilists that have adopted Molinism as a scenario, people like Bruce Ware. And others say, well, see, now we look at, God placing someone in every possible circumstance and condition. So not just their essence, now we look at what they would do. Second logical moment, okay? And so you have, antecedent, concurrent, circumstances, conditions, all of that. So, see, the idea is what you would do, okay? And what people are most concerned about here is that, you make your own choices. Now, huh?
So we're responsible.
Well, yeah, and that's what we're going to get to. We get to the free choice part, but that's why, the idea of avoiding, and again, the word determinism is, people throw that out. Well, if everything is determined, then that must mean fatalism. That must mean this. That must mean there's no responsibility. But here's where, again, you sort of have a timeout. Again, you'll go right back to monotheism and say, look, start with the basics. God exists. He made the world. And as someone once said, the Gomez-Adams theory of this stuff, if God wants to make the trains crash together, they're his trains, okay? If you remember the Addams family. So the thing is, look, if you really start with monotheism, well, what if God created us with no free will? You got to ask this, forget apologetics and all this other stuff, just theologically speaking, what if God created us with no free will? Well, he's God. He has a right to do that. He has a right to crash the trains, and whatever he did was right. Unless we can get to the place in monotheism where you say the judge of the whole earth will do what is right, has done what is right, whatever he does is right, you got a wrong idea of a monotheistic God who is the measure of all good. So that's why, now, yes, there are objections, and that's why you're here in an apologetics program. But sometimes, like I said, just bring people back to monotheism and say, well, what if? Well, look, if God exists, what are you going to do about it? Like I said, you're going to complain to him? It really eliminates a lot of the force of objections just getting to monotheism. So, well, I don't like it. Well, you tell them that when you meet them, okay? But the fact is, there are, again, very well thought out scenarios where, of course, we have free choice and we're responsible for what we do. And those are the things we're going to talk about now. So the idea of middle knowledge, knowing what you would do, well, all of that, and again, this is important to every system and everybody that thinks about the question. Whether or not God has a second logical moment, before free knowledge. And you can decide on that for yourselves. It doesn't make sense to distinguish essences from, what they'd freely do. Sure, okay. But at the same time, it's also logically distinct to talk about a, first choice you made, a second choice that you made, and you could logically distinguish those and have a trillion, logical moments in every part of the scenario. And again, if you want to make the argument that this is just grounded in the divine intellect, this is just the entire divine intellect perfected. There aren't two divine intellects. So, so if you're going to divide the second logical moment, why not 20, 30, 40, or whatever else would be part of the scenario? So, but again, everybody is going to approach this differently, and the classic model is two. Again, some modern, post-16th century folks have adopted Molinism. So again, even there, knowing what you would do, well, what does that mean? Because still, God has to decide. God is the one who ultimately decides to whether or not to enact that scenario where he knows what you would do. So in the end, when you get here, what do you end up with? God made the world that he wanted to make. And nobody was around to influence him. Nothing external to him influenced him. And not just the Calvinist or the Lutherans, aka the Augustinian monergist, or the semi-Augustinian Wesleyan Methodist, or you start going down the line. Once you get to Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, whatever, you get to this, God decides to make people, some are elect and some are reprobate. And it's an eternal, certain knowledge of God. So whether you're Arminian, a Calvinist, a Lutheran, a Catholic, whatever, God decided to make some people he knew would never be saved. So, quote, do they have a chance? Yeah. So this is why, sometimes these scenarios we want to do to try and, create theodicies to justify God. Again, go back to the foundations. Look, this is exactly why open theists and Socinians are around, because I just can't live with that. So I have to say this is not yet determined. It's determined when people actually exist and make the decision. God doesn't have an eternal knowledge of these things. He's gaining knowledge about who are the elect and the reprobate.
I like the Molinist view here because it seems to me, everything is determined or predestined by God. But
Okay,
the
let's
eternal
hear.
reprobate freely choose to be eternally reprobate, even though he created a world in which he knew they would be. I like that better than saying God created some persons that never had a chance to come to him, and then he punished them for a choice they were powerless to make. Am I missing something?
Well, again, that gets into more full application in soteriology, because again, you're using terms like freely choose to be reprobate. Nobody freely chooses to be reprobate. Everybody freely chooses to sin. And the result is punishment. The question is that you get into, and again, someone who's not a Molinist, and again, there are Arminians who are not Molinist, so they don't hold to a second logical moment, still hold to libertarianism. So why? Because of simple foreknowledge, or God simply knows what you choose. He simply knows that simple foreknowledge. So the whole point here is that whether, let's take Bob, okay? Now, God runs Bob through every possible circumstance and condition in every possible world, and now he's in a state of trans-world damnation. He can't be saved in any possible world. The problem is God still decides to make him. So to say somehow he got a chance, no, because God designed his essence. And he never, there's an essence that God designed that never would believe, yet he still decides to create it anyway. So the question is, does that really solve the problem of justifying God? Because now it's on you, so, well, again, the whole point is, look, different people are going to come up with different answers to that. And in a mixed audience like this, it's like, look, the point is, whether, again, compatibilism, Molinistic libertarianism, simple foreknowledge libertarianism. That's why I signed you guys a book on this. You can read it, and spend a whole week whipping each other on the discussion board on the issue. And the point is you have to. It's like creation. Yeah, when we get to the doctrine of creation, look, God created the world. It's ex nihilo creation. God's the one that directly and immediately created essences. They didn't evolve from a pool of slime like liberals. But how old the earth is and things like that. See, it's the same thing. You come up, look, here's the stuff we absolutely have to agree on. What's the best way to interpret Scripture? Yeah, it does make a difference, and whether one has more explanatory power than the other to solve some of these dilemmas. But same thing with here. Look, let's just start with, God does know the future. The future is certain. We weren't around to influence God. God made the world he wanted to make, and he made a world where, again, he knew there are people who'd never be saved, and he decided to make that world. So you start with that as a foundation, but you have to go back one step, and because he's God, well, there you go. Okay, whatever God did was right. Or as let's see, I think it was Job who said, "What should we accept good from God and not adversity? The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." So, yeah, see, that's someone who understands monotheism. Being a creature. So sometimes, like I said, we can't let our apologetics get ahead of our theology. If we do, sometimes we'll spend way too much time on things we maybe shouldn't, and maybe focus on things that are prior to that. So that's it. You can make lots on Molinism. Whether or not Molinism has the explanatory power or doesn't have the explanatory power, you can decide for yourselves. And again, we know you got a mixed audience here, which moves us to page 2, the free choice issue. Yeah, now you can all freely choose to move to page 2, as it was decreed that you would do at this moment. Again, the thing is what people are concerned about is what? Practical freedom. And again, that is a concern. If you have two basic concepts, praise and blame, okay? How do you praise and reward people appropriately, blame them for things and punish them? Is it appropriate if there isn't enough practical freedom, okay? So that's the key. So I'm going to map out some of the keys here. Is that we want to, if you want to have any real concept of free choice, first thing you avoid is hard determinism, okay? And so as you look at hard determinism, it means what? All events are inevitable consequences of antecedent sufficient causes. Hard or absolute determinists deny the possibility of free will or free choice. And the second element is that free choices and acts are those of the agent. That is, the free agent is the efficient cause of the movement of the will. So again, there's so minimally, that's what we're going to find. So we start to look at the scenarios here. Let's take a quick look. Start with the real issue in free will that everybody's really concerned about. And by the way, if you look at confessional Calvinism, is that, confessional Calvinism is compatibilist. It's not hard determinist, okay, in their approach. Because as we'll start fleshing out the concepts and terms here, the idea in any scenario that involves free choice, there's 7 or 8 main factors. For example, you need to think about how God fits in this. God's logic and his decree are logically prior to any concept of free will. So you got to have that in the scenario before you even begin to think about what free choice would be. So as we start, talk about hard determinism. And what's the next view? Compatibilism, okay? And compatibilism, sometimes called soft determinism. Then, let me see, have libertarian free will. And in this case, we'll just call it, Arminian. And then libertarian open theist. Okay. Now I'm gonna make the case that at least biblically, this is out, and biblically, this is out. So, and that really where the debate is, we're sort of going back and forth here, and I'll show you why. Because what's going on in the free choice debate is this. What are people really concerned about? All right, we're here. What do we agree on? the certainty of divine foreknowledge. Okay, certainty here means 100% certainty, impossible to doubt. And so whatever God decrees will certainly come to pass. Okay, 100% impossible to doubt. If God said that you're going to have a bacon cheeseburger for lunch today, then darn it, you're going to have a bacon cheeseburger for lunch. So, so that's right, man. So that wouldn't be part of the doctrine of sin, by the way. And so now, what are people really concerned about? All right, hard determinism means everything is determined in effect that it's rendered certain to occur and it can't be otherwise. Okay? That's really the notion of determinism. And every single thing that ever occurs is brought about, as I said here, by antecedent sufficient causes. But really, what's at stake at hard determinism is this. When we talk about the will being free, okay, what does that mean? People use the term all the time, but often it's used without definition. So the idea of if it being free, it means free from external, okay, external, efficient. We'd add there immediate, efficient causation. Okay, so forget the will. How about the intellect? Okay, do you move your own intellect? Yeah. Well, guess what? Moving your own intellect comes prior to moving your will. So the key is both the intellect and the will, are they self-moved by the agent making the thought of the choice? See, are you the efficient cause of your own thoughts and choices? And that's where, as I put here in your handout, look at page 4. I'll start looking at some of these definitions here, which I'm sure you memorized in the spring semester, right? So, good. So here, again, if we literally could spend the whole day or 2 or 3 days going through what all these mean. But some of the key definitions I want to give you here, because you really want to flesh this out, you got to get this stuff. We talk about a cause. Look at the top of page 6. Okay? And what's a cause? That which brings about motion or mutation. In other words, effects are only 2 kinds, motion or mutation. You either move something or you change something. Okay? So that's a cause. Okay? Power is the capacity or ability of a thing to affect motion or mutation. So you see the relationship of power and cause. Because you're a substance, you have causal powers, and you can bring things to effect. Agent causation, you can decide what kinds of effects to bring out. So now some of the key definitions here, the fact is that, look, there's all sorts of, quote, antecedent causes, okay, that go on. God is always the first cause of everything. He brought the universe into existence. He's providentially governing it. The only question is that, is God or anything else the key here, efficient cause, okay? That which is productive or the effective cause, which is the agent productive or the motion or mutations in any sequence of causes or effects. Why? Something that happened 3 years ago might be a remote cause. You thought about coming here to the school. That's not the immediate efficient cause of what you decide to do right now, but an impelling cause. For example, what impels us to go in one direction or another? That we're compassionate people. We think about people in misery, so that impels you. But that's not the efficient cause of why you might help someone. It does not ground the choice itself. Again, so the key here, again, there's instrumental causes. it's not the efficient cause, but it's a means to bring about the desired effect. So all of this can be considered in your scenarios of causation, but the key is free choice or free will means that you, as an agent, are the efficient cause of your own thoughts and choices, period. So where God is always first cause, freedom would entail secondary free causation. Okay? In other words, God is first cause by decreeing it, setting it in motion, providentially governing it. But the question is, did you move your own will? Okay? Did you make the choice? Okay? Now that's minimally question. See, a hard determinist says no. Basically, your thoughts and choices are efficiently caused by external stuff. Hence, can't be otherwise. You're going to make those choices. Okay, in that sense, it's determined. It can't be otherwise. But also, in addition to that, you're not free from efficient, immediate, external causation. Yeah, real quick.
If that was the case, if you were determined right down to the level of your thoughts, wouldn't it be the case that you wouldn't be able to know that, since you'd have to be able to come to that conclusion through discursive thought, which requires some level of freedom?
Well, again, put all that together. This is just, look, what we see going on, if you take determined as certain to occur and can't be otherwise, okay, and that's what determinism is. That's really how it's classically defined in the discussion. So whether the fact is, are you determined to have the thoughts you're having right now down to the very thoughts and can't be otherwise? Well, depends what that means. If you're just simply saying they were rendered certain in exhaustive, meticulous detail in God's omniscient, decree, then yeah, okay. But then the question is, did I make my own choice? Did I make my own thought? Hold on to the question here, as I'm going to do a couple other things before we move on here. Then I'll take a couple of questions. Let me finish this here. So hard determinism says what? No free will. Okay? Or no free willy. Okay? So it's just explicit. No, there isn't any free will. Every choice, every thought we make every choice or thought we make is it louder now? Wow, I didn't touch it. I don't know. Hello. Okay. Hello. So, all right. So you can hear this, correct? Hello. Okay, it's good. So, all right. So maybe didn't like my free willy joke. I don't know. So, all right. Sorry. So, all right. We'll keep it going here. All right. So, yes to everything is determined, can't be otherwise, and immediate external causes are what produces your thoughts and choices. Okay, that's it. Now, soft determinist says yes, everything's rendered certain to occur and it can't be otherwise. Okay, that's it. But why is it called compatibilism? Because they're saying that determinism is compatible with practical free choice. Okay, that's why it's called compatibilism. That the concept of determinism is compatible with the concept of free choice. And so the soft determinist says, yes, everything is certain, and there are no counterfactuals of creaturely freedom. Hence, if God's determined that you will choose X, you will choose X. It won't be otherwise. Okay? And so they say that the only thing that's the one necessary and sufficient condition for practical freedom is that the will is self-moved. That's it. So, hence, since you freely deliberate, not based on externally efficient causes. Now, when you talk about that, look, everybody deliberates what you're going to do according to your knowledge, according to your circumstances that you're in. And this is considered in the compatibilist scheme, where, of course, your life history, what you value, the situation you're in now, are all going to be impelling causes, proximate causes, things like that, but it's not the efficient cause of your choice. And the compatibilist would say that there's no otherwise here, because to give alternative possibility is ultimately to say there's no certainty about it. Let me finish this scenario, then I'll take some questions. So again, so the argument is, if you had deliberated otherwise, you would have chosen otherwise, okay? So that's where the otherwiseness is in the deliberation, not the choice. So now here, you move forward, okay? The libertarian Arminian position, and I might want to add here 3, you'd have the certainty of divine foreknowledge. Here, certainty, divine foreknowledge, okay? So, move forward. The libertarian Arminian is also going to hold to the certainty of divine foreknowledge, okay? But they're going to say that not only does the will need to be self-moved, but also you need counterfactuals of creaturely freedom, hence alternative possibility in every instance of free choice in which you could find yourself. Otherwise, the will's not sufficiently free to ground, plays, or blame. And because of, add middle knowledge, simple foreknowledge, whatever it happens to be, there is the certainty of divine foreknowledge, okay? Now, so that's essentially the libertarian Arminian view. Now you move to libertarian open theist, and you've got to be careful here, because even though the open theists today, who are around, the Greg Boyds, Sanders, Clark Pinnock died a couple of years ago, technically they'd identify themselves with the Arminian camp, but they've gone past basically what Arminianism is at this point, because they've denied the certainty of divine foreknowledge. So they would agree here that the will is self-moved. They would affirm the necessity of counterfactuals of creaturely freedom, but what would they deny? Certainty of divine foreknowledge. Okay. Why? Because they would argue with the compatibilist, if there is the principle of alternative possibility, then God can't know with certainty what we'd choose. There's no ground for his certainty. If you really can choose otherwise in any instance of free choice in which you find yourself. So that's the idea. Hold questions here, because I'm basically going to cover a lot of stuff. So if you still have the question when I'm done, mainly for time and to keep my voice done, because the more questions you're asking now, the more I got to talk later. I'm trying to make sure I can get through the end of the day today. So we'll do that. So, do you need a break right now? Not you. I mean, just all that. So why don't you take another 5-minute break? Some of you look like you could use a break, so I'll probably do this.